Hello and welcome to Retirement Today. If you are like me, you don't mind paying your share of taxes, your fair share of taxes. But it seems like many of us are paying a lot more than our fair share of taxes. Many of us have to pay a ridiculous amount of taxes. I'm sure that our founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves if they knew how much we were paying in taxes. Would you like to know how to pay a little bit less in taxes over the rest of your lifetime? My name is David Cox. I'm filling in for Jenna Carnes today, and I've been in the industry over 18 years. I joined the Beacon Wealth team last year. We're here to help you get to and through retirement with financial peace, of course. If you'd like to listen to this podcast again or any other past ones, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. We also have a YouTube channel. You can read or type in Beacon Wealth Advisory, find us, subscribe, and get notified every time we do a new video that comes out. Before we get started today, I want to bring in my co-host, Ms. Jaclyn Gladhill. Always great to have you, Jaclyn.
Well, Dave, it is a pleasure to do this with you today. And for our
Thank you.
listeners and viewers, Dave is new on the show. So we just need, kind of a round of applause for that one. Hold on. We got to find the round of applause.
There it is.
Yes, it's great to have you. And, before we dive into this topic, I want our listeners to get to know you just a little bit. So I know that you share that you're in the industry and you have been for 18 years,
Yes, ma'am.
but you have quite a background, a unique background that makes you, great at speaking and great at communicating. So can you share with our listeners a little bit about that?
Well, I'm a Kansas City guy, born and raised here, lived here most of my life. And prior to working in the financial services industry, I worked in nonprofits, specifically in ministry. And I was in ministry for 25 years or so and loved it, and then reshifted into financial services. And so I am so blessed to be working with retirees, helping them avoid the common mistakes that happens to so many other people as they approach retirement, as they get into retirement, helping them to avoid those so that they have a peaceful sleep at night kind of retirement. And it's the kind of job that is so rewarding to me, Jaclyn. Solving problems and putting a kind of a puzzle together to help people figure out how their retirement can go smooth for them and they don't run out of life before they run out of money or whatever the case may be. Just making sure they're set up for success during those critical retirement years. So I'm going to be doing this till I drop. I just love it and feel really blessed to be able to do it with Jenna and her Beacon Wealth team. They're a great group of folks.
Yes. Well, that is super exciting. And honestly, Jenna and I do bring up quite a few times on the show how, our faith impacts decision making. And so it's so great to know that you're also on board with us in regards to that. And, it's great to get to know you. And for our listeners and viewers, it's just great to have a different face on sometimes. So
appreciate that. It's very kind.
Well, Dave, this is an important topic that we're going to be talking about today, and we can kind of tell through the lens of the title. And so let's share a little bit more about what we'll be talking about.
Well, we're going to look at long-term tax planning. And I don't know how many of our viewers or listeners love to pay taxes or how many like to even talk about taxes. But actually, Jaclyn, I love to do both. I like to pay taxes because it means I've made some money. And I like to talk about taxes because I know, and this is true as well, there are those who are informed and they pay less in taxes, and there are those who are uninformed and they pay more in taxes. And we want to be like the first group.
Yes.
So specifically today, and Jenna's been talking about taxes somewhat over the last few weeks, but specifically today, we're going to look at Roth IRA conversions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm really glad that we're going to be talking about this because, we've gotten so many questions, basically, what is it, who should do it, and how it actually saves you money in the long run. Because I think, I'm with the listeners and the viewers on this. We want to save taxes.
Yeah.
Taxes is, we want to only give Uncle Sam how much he deserves and then pack it, back away in our home. So, Dave, let's unpack this.
Okay, so a little quick refresher. A Roth IRA retirement account lets you put your money in and lets it grow tax-free. So you pay the taxes on the assets when you put it in the Roth IRA, but once it's in the Roth, it grows tax-free and you can withdraw it tax-free. So it's a beautiful thing. It's post-tax money that you put in and it grows tax-free as you pull it out.
Yeah, it sounds like the dream. I mean, no taxes later when you're trying to enjoy your retirement.
Yeah, it is exactly the dream. Now, a Roth IRA conversion is when you take money from a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k, a pre-tax account, and you move it into a Roth IRA. Now, here's the catch. There's an entry fee, so to speak, where you have to pay the ordinary income tax on the amount that you convert in the year that you convert.
There's always some sort of catch, right?
Yes,
And
yes, yeah.
so, I mean, when you're paying taxes now to hopefully avoid bigger taxes later, right? That's the goal.
That is the goal. And you're right. There is always a trade-off. There's always a trade-off. Doesn't matter what you're doing in life or what you're doing with finance. There's always a trade-off. The goal again is tax-free growth. That's the trade-off. You're owing the taxes now, but you get tax-free growth and you get a ton of flexibility later on.
Mhm.
One of the things that most people don't realize is that right now, our income tax brackets, Jaclyn, are actually at relatively low historical levels. You look back through our histories, you go back to the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, our income tax brackets were so much higher, especially when our national debt was really, really high. And
Mhm.
our national debt today is really, really high. It's 39 trillion with a T, trillion
Wow.
dollars. And yet our brackets remain low. We feel like we're paying a lot in taxes because, in fact, we are, but it's because of stealth taxes. We're talking about state tax, local tax, sales tax, property tax, capital gains tax, IRMA tax, FICA tax, estate tax, all these different taxes that we pay as well, in addition to income taxes. But our income tax brackets are relatively low. Ed Slott is considered the premier IRA specialist in America. And he says taxes are on sale. And I tend to agree. Again, I mentioned that I grew up here in Kansas City. I grew up in a little town called Merriam, which is just a little bit from where we are here in Overland Park. And Merriam had a Kmart. Did you ever go to Kmart, Jaclyn?
I don't think they have those in Minnesota.
Okay, Kmart is, I guess it's like Walmart before Walmart was Walmart. But
Yes.
at Kmart, my family would go often on a Saturday, and we'd go in, and Dad would gather us at the front of the store, and he'd say to my mom and my sister and my randy little brother and me, he would say, "Okay, guys, if you get separated from the family, here's what I want you to do. I want you to meet at the blue light special." Everybody that ever went to Kmart knows what a blue light special was. It was the sale of the day or the sale of the hour. And
Mhm.
that's where Dad wanted us to meet. I got to tell you, our income tax brackets are the blue light special going on today. That's why now is a good time to consider Roth conversions.
Well, that's really interesting to hear because, personally, I hear that taxes are insane and that they're super high. And so it's interesting to hear from your perspective that they truly aren't. I mean, in relation to our past and our history, they aren't. Um,
Again, that's income tax brackets. With all
yeah.
those other taxes, we actually are paying a ton in taxes, but income brackets are on sale.
Okay. So, Dave, why would someone actually want to convert, and want to do this? I mean, what are
Well,
the main benefits?
there are three critical ones. Tax-free withdrawals. So once you put the money in the Roth, you'll never owe taxes on that on the gains that you make or on the withdrawals, assuming you're doing a qualified distribution. There's tax-free withdrawals, one of the main benefits. Flexibility is the other one. Another one. With a traditional IRA or traditional 401k, you have required minimum distributions. There are no RMDs on a Roth. So that's a real flexibility factor, allowing you to plan better. And then the third big benefit is legacy planning. Because when your kids or your grandkids inherit a Roth IRA, they inherit it tax-free. That is incredible for estate tax planning.
Yeah, and that all sounds great. I mean, it sounds like the dream. So, but I can hear our listeners and viewers potentially saying, what about the taxes right now?
Yeah, you're right. That is the trade-off, as we mentioned earlier. But here's the thing I want you to remember. It's not whether you will pay taxes on those funds, it's when you will pay taxes on those funds.
Mm-hmm.
Those funds in that traditional IRA, that traditional 401k, you have a partner. The partner is the IRS. The partner is your state. You have partners there, and you're going to owe taxes on those dollars. So the goal is to reduce your taxable footprint from this point forward.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to reduce the taxes you pay the rest of your life. So when you pay those taxes, not whether you pay the taxes, when really matters. But again, if you convert $100,000 from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, say you're in the 22% bracket, guess what? That's a $22,000 tax bill that you will need to have the cash on hand to pay for that.
So just to further that, who is a Roth conversion best for?
That's a great question. I think it's best for those who believe taxes are going to increase in the future, not in the next few years. Very few people believe that, but in the course of our lifetime, certainly in the course of your lifetime as a young person, taxes are likely to increase. $39 trillion of national debt is going to have to be taken care of at some point. And the primary way that's going to be taken is by increased taxes. So wouldn't you rather like to pay taxes at today's known rates rather than tomorrow's unknown rates? That's why a Roth conversion might be really good for some people. Others, it's really good for people in lower income years. Maybe you just retired, and maybe it's before Social Security started, before required minimum distributions started. That's who might really benefit from a Roth conversion. Or maybe you're a younger investor. I've got 6 children, Jaclyn, so I've got a party around my house every time we get together. I have 7 grandkids. I'm super blessed in all those kinds of ways. And when my kids are starting out in industry, I tell them over and over and over, when your income is low, you contribute to a Roth so that all that growth over the course of your lifetime grows tax-free and you pull it out tax-free. So younger investors with a long-term horizon, that's one of the other real beneficiaries. But I got to tell you, there are actually exceptions to this. A few years back, I had a 95-year-old client named Winton. Great name for a 95-year-old guy.
Yeah.
And his wife, Juanita. Winton and Juanita. They're the most awesome people. And he came to me and he said, Dave, here's the truth about my story. I'm in the 12% bracket. My kids are in the 24 and 32% brackets. I'm going to leave them these IRAs. Wouldn't it make sense to convert some dollars out of my IRA into a Roth now on my lower tax level, rather than leave it to them and have them taxed at a higher level at 24 or 32?
Yeah.
And I said, Winton, you're 95, but you are brilliant, because it was one of the most intelligent moves I've ever made. He didn't have a long time horizon. He had a few years, maybe, but it was a brilliant move to really, again, reduce the taxable footprint on those dollars that he worked a lifetime to accumulate.
Yeah.
So one really important note here is that Roth conversions are a vital part of tax planning for people accounts. So it's a 401k, a 403b, a 457, those types of pre-tax retirement accounts. If you've got north of $1 million, and many of our listeners and viewers do, they have north of $1 million, they should absolutely be developing a Roth conversion strategy. With rare exceptions, it would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but who should not be doing this? Who should not be jumping on this opportunity?
Yeah, there are really 2 types of people that it really doesn't apply to or fit for. But first, if you don't have the cash to pay the taxes, unless you take it from the IRA that you're converting, we discourage that. That's not optimal. We'll talk maybe a little bit more about that in a minute. But also, if you need the money on the short term, I wouldn't convert any assets that you're going to need in the next few years. You can access the principal that you put in, but you can't access the growth for at least a 5-year window.
Okay. And that makes sense. So, what I'm understanding is the key here is don't do it without a long term plan and working with a financial advisor.
Well, absolutely correct. Roth conversions are part of an overall broader tax retirement strategy. They're not a spontaneous move that you just do on impulse.
Absolutely. Okay, Dave. So now let's get into kind of the practicality of this. And if someone decides a conversion makes sense for them, how do they actually do it?
Well, it's really pretty simple, to be honest with you. First, you have to decide how much you want to convert. You don't have to convert everything. I strongly discourage that, actually. Partial conversions are very, very common. Second thing is you work with the firm that has your IRA or 401k, what we call your IRA custodian. And your IRA provider or custodian can handle the paperwork, and they'll move money directly from your traditional IRA into the Roth IRA. And the third step, you better plan for taxes. Remember, you're going to be being taxed as ordinary income on everything you convert, and you'll get a 1099-R in tax time the first quarter of the next year that includes the converted amount that will be taxed as ordinary wages, because it went into the 401k as wages, comes out as wages.
Okay. And can someone, spread so you mentioned not doing it all at the same time.
Right.
So you can kind of spread out the conversions over
Yes.
time?
Yes, ma'am. We strongly encourage it. I call it a Roth rollout. I'm not unique to that, but a Roth rollout. People do smaller conversions each year, usually within their tax bracket. It's a way to fill up a tax bracket without jumping into the next bracket and maybe owing more.
Mhm. Okay, so the tax bracket. So there's got to be a strategy here for this and involved here with understanding the bracket management, right?
Yeah, I like that phrase, the bracket management. So if you're in the 12% bracket, you may want to convert just enough to fill up that bracket, but not enough to push you into the 22 or the
Yeah.
24. Or if you're in the 24% bracket, you may want to do enough to fill up that bracket, but not enough to push you into the 32. So that's just bracket management. I think that's really, really, really prudent, really, really wise for people to
Yeah.
participate in.
Yeah, it's extremely important. And that's why working with a financial advisor like yourself really helps in the full equation and the mapping out of possible different years. And, it's pretty easy to mess that up as an individual.
It is easy to mess it up because there are some consequences sometimes. You want to coordinate with your CPA. You also want to look at timing. For example, I encourage people, if we have a sell-off in the market and there's a market downturn, maybe that's the optimal time to convert some funds because you're paying taxes on a smaller value. But then when the market recovers, guess what? All that recovery is tax-free gain. So that's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing.
Yeah. And Dave, what are some mistakes that people make or have typically made in your past with these Roth conversions?
I've seen a couple mistakes that people make. Excuse me. One is using IRA money that you're converting to actually pay the tax bill. Sort of defeats the purpose, if you will, and it's not optimal. I've seen it done from time to time, but it's rare that you want to do that. You want to pay it with brokerage account money, with money out of a CD or savings or something like that. Second thing is not understanding the 5-year rule. Each conversion has its own 5-year clock that starts once you make the deposit into the Roth or you convert into the Roth. You have a 5-year clock, and it's the growth that you can't pull out for 5 years or 59 and a half. And the third big mistake that I see is ignoring the impact on Medicare premiums or Social Security taxation. If you don't take those into account, Roth conversions can lead to higher taxes on your Social Security benefits, and they can lead to a significant increase on your Medicare premiums. So you have to plan for that.
Yes, and like we briefly said earlier, there's always a catch, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, even though it's a great tool and we highly recommend it, it sounds like it can have ripple effects if you don't plan accordingly.
It is a powerful tool, Jaclyn, that I strongly encourage people with significant assets to plan, but it has to be done with intention.
Absolutely. Okay, Dave. So let's kind of do a little quick recap of this.
Okay.
So Roth conversions can give you a tax-free growth, no RMDs, and flexibility, but you've got to plan around the taxes today for your long-term plan.
Absolutely. Pay the taxes at today's known rates rather than tomorrow's unknown rates. That's what I always like to say. So
Mhm.
work with your advisor, work with your CPA, run some tax projections, see if it fits your situation. It doesn't fit everybody, Jaclyn. It absolutely does not.
Mhm.
See if it fits your situation. And, it might fit your situation this year. It may not fit it next year.
Mhm.
So do some thinking, work with your CPA, work with your advisor, and see if it works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dave, it's so great that the team at Beacon Wealth Advisory, you guys do holistic financial planning.
Right.
And this is why people should get a second opinion on their retirement plan and make sure that they're not missing anything or they're on track to, not have a big tax problem because that seems to be one of the things that most commonly happen. So, how can people get a hold of you for a complimentary consultation?
You can reach us at Beacon. Our 800 number is 1-800-994-8993. And if you call this month after listening to the show, we'll send you a 2026 tax planning guide. We'll show all the important updates and the numbers you need to be made aware of for this particular tax year. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and we'll see you next week on Retirement Today.
Well,
Blessings.
thank you, Dave.
Yes, ma'am.